certain pending legal matter. I did forget to state for the record that Sheriff McAndrew is feeling under the weather today, and that's why he hasn't been able to be here. But so now we'll come to anybody from the public wishing to address the board. You can step to the Bev. She just jumped right out of that chair. She got you. All right, you're next. You're next.
I have to cut out about half my stuff, but I really was looking forward to this. But about the Jubilee, of course, we're glad to hear progress. But, I'm sorry, Bev DeBarros, 914 Quincy. Thanks, Zach. Okay, the Jubilee, I just wonder, the newsletter that was put out about them, of course, who will give comfort and guidance? It's a chaplain will talk, guide, share the hope of Christ. That's why prison chaplaincy is so important. Who will show them the hope of Christ? Nothing here about, I mean, of course, Catholics are just as Christian as we Protestants are in Jubilee, but their services are a little different. They need a priest, you know? And when I was in there as a volunteer, Mondays were Catholic days. They had a lot of services in there for Catholics. Fridays, which is not mentioned here, were the Muslim services. I mean, and I can just picture in our room there of our stuff, the rows of the Methodist hymnals, the rows of the Qurans, the Catholic Bibles, the Gideon Bibles. You know, it's not just all a narrower aspect of faith that needs to be addressed in there. Oh, and as for the volunteers, how important we are, I got a letter this week from Kentucky, Amanda from Federal, 2 paragraphs I want to read to you. And by the way, she and others have told me anytime that our letters can be used to help matters, do it, you know. So I don't know how my life in here in LCP would have been without the volunteers coming in to share the good news, and by that, good news is gospel, capital G, capital. I'm extremely grateful to have had the opportunity to meet you and the others. I will continue to pray that the powers that be at LCP wisen up and start to give the inmates their hope that they can still make a difference and that they matter too. And then a small additional paragraph. Last month, you all met Phil Yeviks. Occasionally, I would ask Phil to come in to class because he's a doctor in theology, and he would explain things way beyond my head. And so Amanda writes, I still can hear Phil Yeviks' voice, and it makes me smile. I could listen to him for hours. I love how he explains things. It makes me want to learn more. So please consider us volunteers along with a full-time chaplain and 2 part-time chaplains in there. Another topic is the voting. 2 months ago, I was here, told about the ballots and everything. How many of our hundreds of people have been able to register to vote or send for their mail-in ballots from the jail? I never heard of any that did. So I was down at the Bureau of Elections, 2nd floor of this very place here, and got a bunch more, but nowhere near the hundreds that you would need. Additional, everything that I went through the last time, I won't repeat, but additionally, we have lists of all 67 counties in the state of Pennsylvania. So those in other counties, I now have their addresses to give to you. I don't know anything about out of state. It would be hard for those people to be contacted, to contact their Board of Elections. This is just awful that this is not addressed in here. So I'm thinking, well, I know 3 capable people in the jail that could spearhead this for the next 4 days, and that would be Dave Piga and Eddie Williams and Corey Suho. They could help. All the COs are capable of reading and going in. It's just, as a resident of Scranton, as a resident of our county, me and others, we feel responsible to these inmates be given the rights that they have, you know? And I discussed how they can't mail it in, they don't have stamps, but you can drop it off, again, right down here, 2nd floor. So I will give this, and my suggestion is 2 more things. Of course, ever since you went to tablets, or I think that's what they're called, I talked about getting newspapers online, free, local and national. How can we have informed voters when they get nothing from the outside? There's a little TV up there with what? Channel 16. Doesn't this affect anybody but me, you know? And the other thing is, here we are, time crunch. I say go straight to the U, ask them to hire, with all of our thousands of dollars, we could hire some university students to really put in some time over this next week and come in and help with this and get this done. So there's that. I had more, but, okay, I have another thing. I'll have to come back, sadly. And the same questions I had were about the AA, the GED, and never mind the writing classes and the parenting classes that we might get eventually. The reason I ask these questions and put these suggestions out is not just for me. The ECTV, how many people watch that? That's their window for seeing what's going on here in our jail. I mean, every good citizen is concerned. So thank you for listening. And I will give these ballots to, back there, I guess, Colleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev.
Hi, my name is Brenda Johnson. I'm a retired military officer. And like my sister that just came, part of democracy is people being able to vote. And when I'm very compassionate about people being able to vote. Those that are in jail, prisons, we are their voice. If it wasn't for those on the outside caring about them, they can be locked away forever and no one really cares. We are their voice. Someone please work out something, because I know she had asked several months or whatever ago in reference to the ballots. Please. I'm not sure whose responsibility that is, but please. The other thing is I'm concerned about the mental health professionals. The warden himself said it's possibly 50% of the population that have mental health problems. 50%. That's a high number not to have someone there that is a mental health provider. Yes, you have one who's about to get fired, laid off, not given a raise, or whatever the case was. Please give me a break. These people are going to be released back into our society. it's imperative that they have some type of mental health assessment. That is really, really important. It really is. So that was the thing I was going to talk about today, was mental health and voting. Because I work with PA Stands Up, and we canvass going door to door, talking to voters. This is democracy in action. We are walking democracy in action. So please, does anybody have an answer on the ballots? Who's responsible or how that works?
There's not a simple answer to it, because a lot of our inmates are not from Lackawanna County. They're from various counties. They're from out of state. And so whether or not somebody can vote depends on a lot of different things.
Well, what about just Lackawanna County? Let's just ask the
Are
rest
they
of them.
registered to vote, number one? And
Well, that was a voter registration form that she had. That was a voter registration
I thought it was
form.
an application for a mail-in ballot.
No, it isn't. There is the application to get that.
And October 26th is the deadline for that.
Yes. It's coming. Okay, it's one, what, if the 26th or the
if-
23rd, it's like, my goodness.
Based on my discussions with the warden, if inmates ask, they're supplied with them, okay? But you have to remember, it then becomes a very delicate situation in terms of passing out ballots, assisting people necessarily with filling them out, and then, the whole, we've lived for the last 4 years through nationwide allegations of voter fraud and so you have to be very, very careful that we put our people. I know you find this difficult. Look, I share your belief. I mean, if they're eligible to vote and they're registered to vote and they're residents of Lackawanna County, if they ask for a ballot, they can have a ballot. They can have a mail-in ballot. They can apply. That's not, we don't have a you can't vote policy at the prison.
My last question then, is there any numbers on the people that have requested ballots and were given ballots? Is there anyone tracking it?
I don't know that there is, to be honest with you. I don't know. Warden, do we track that?
We not only don't track that, it's my understanding nobody has asked for, that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We don't deny it, but I don't know that anybody's asked.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Abigail Mikowski. I live on Penn Avenue in Scranton. I'm still waiting for that. What were the 2 audits? So as I recall in the August meeting, Prison Warden Betti was asked to produce audits on WellPath. In September, he finally did, but it was only the June to July. I was wondering if, due to everything that came out from that first audit, if those second 2 audits had been done. The other thing is, does anyone in this room know what the symptoms of withdrawal are? Okay, so they are as follows. Agitation, confusion, paranoia, depression, bursts of rage, anger, anxiety, vomiting, pain, diarrhea. So maybe some of the issues that we are having with security would have a lot to do with the fact that maybe these men are having withdrawals, need medical care, which, as far as I knew, there was no medical director acting, but we were paying WellPath for that. Clocked at 0 hours, and how many were supposed to be 300? 300. That there was no administration in the medical staffing. So maybe some of the problems that we are having is because of the lack of mental health that's in there. And yes, maybe they're not aware that they have that right to ask for a ballot. Maybe you have to make them aware of their rights They're in there, and as far as they know, they're in a cage. And I don't think they're treated very nice by all of the letters that NEPA Stands Up has received. I've heard accounts of women being allowed to be naked in the mental health ward, and there sits the guard just watching. Them being denied showers. That could be your kid. I think that the problem here might be not that we need more security, but we need proper staffing. From what I remember, almost half the staff was on FMA leave. So if you're understaffed and now you want to initiate, according to last meeting, which it's changed now, 10 staff, right? There was 6 full-time that were needed and there was 4 part-time. So now you want to try to train them in an understaffed prison. How is that going to work, and how is that not mass chaos? I think that the problems here are very, very clear. But I also think that you are allowing it to go on, because the more meetings that we have like this, the worse it gets each time. Technically, he is negligent, and whether he'd like to take responsibility for it or not, when you sit in a seat of power in a supervisory position, you are at fault. Your leadership would be the reason. And yes, everything falls on the leader. If you don't have it right, just remove yourself. It's very easy, because these are people's lives. And that's somebody's son, and somebody's daughter, and somebody's niece, and somebody's brother. But there's all this talk of money. It always seems to come down to the nice dollar. I have to tell you something. It's a piece of paper painted green, and it's not worth a human life. And those men deserve, and those women deserve their rights. Rights to vote, rights to have medical care, rights to be treated kindly, rights not to be shot with Narcan and moved, which caused a seizure. They deserve their rights to have proper mental health care. There is no way that one person can handle that amount of caseload. And they don't need raises. They need proper training. These are people. All of us are people. And when they come out here, they have to deal with what I deal with. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to be denied and everybody say no, and then to hear things like, we're so proud of it. Maybe that's the problem, pride. Pride. Because if you cared, you would listen and you would do something. He doesn't get anonymity because of where he sits. No one does. This is law. This is government. This is people. It doesn't come down to money. It comes down to common decency, humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to approach?
Hi, I'm Liz Parsons. I was at the meeting here last month, and a few board members had agreed and committed to the public and one another to go visit the prison. Did that happen?
I had mentioned that last month, and I talked to the. I actually mentioned that last month, and I talked to the warden about setting up a time for me to come over, like very soon, like in the next couple of days, maybe by next week for sure.
Okay, anybody else?
I've been there several times. I've walked through the facility several times.
So I guess that is a question I have to the board. Has everybody who sits on the board been to the prison and familiar with the various blocks, solitary practices, restraint practices,
Yes.
as you're overseeing the prison?
I've been going to the prison for years.
I've been to the prison many, many times. Last 2 months.
With a restrictive area, that's what I wanted to see.
Okay, so, I mean, I'll assume from the lack of other responses that the other board members have not been to the prison?
Well, you're looking at people that aren't on the board.
Yeah.
They're not on the board.
Okay,
I know for a fact Commissioner Chermak has been there as
many
well.
times.
okay.
you know.
Anytime.
Yeah, I just, as a concerned citizen, think it's important to know, and have eyes on what's going on in there if you're overseeing the facility. I also wanted to just, as a concerned citizen, just highlight some of what Debi, Domenick had mentioned in listening to the warden's report. One thing that really stuck out to me as far as safety and mental health in the extraordinary circumstances report, there was one individual that was reported multiple times. It had appeared that he was placed in the emergency restraint chair 3 times before any psychiatric evaluation was conducted. And it also sounds like there, upon intake, is no question of or assessment of mental health, illness, or concerns with folks who are entering the facility. That's indicated by doing a survey. I think maybe the board should consider including that question on intake for at least folks who will, self-disclose that they do suffer with mental illness. It would help you get a better idea from the start of their, time at Lackawanna prison to understand their needs. I also recall from the WellPath audit, the contract audit that was discussed last month, in addition to the medical director who clocked 0 hours, there were also mental health hours that the county paid for in that contract, which the warden reported through the audit. Also, 0 hours were provided through WellPath. And so, it's a little disturbing to hear that not only are we entirely eliminating positions, leaving one mental health professional to a 250-person caseload. I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with mental health or any treatment services, but 250 is absolutely impossible to provide any, significant level of care to any individual in that caseload. You're paying, the county, we are paying for contracted hours through WellPath and being provided none of that. And we also have plenty of volunteers that have not been allowed in the prison due to, the reasons cited are COVID, which according to the warden is 0 right now. We have 0 cases of COVID in the prison, and also contraband, which, I would assume still came into the prison when we were on total lockdown from COVID. And so if we have volunteers in the community and resources that we're paying for, my question is, why aren't we utilizing them? I know for a fact there was a woman organizing to educate the folks incarcerated in Lackawanna, work with them to help them register to vote, and that program was put to an end at the beginning of COVID. Am I correct? Okay, well, I had spoken to that individual who told me she wasn't allowed into the prison any longer. So, I just, as a concerned citizen, we have plenty of resources, and we sit here every month and we talk about how, we're conducting audits and how we have plans to eliminate positions, but there's no plans for programming. There's no plans to help people, return to our society, safer people. This is a county jail. Almost everybody there is returning to our community. And we are just perpetuating a cycle where they will be back in the jail because they're set up for failure time and time again. And so I guess my question to the board is, I'm not entirely familiar with how motions are initiated or voted upon, but it seemed from coming to these meetings, anytime we want something done, the board initiates a motion, or anytime the board wants something done, they initiate a vote and a motion. So I'm curious if that could be a process for a plan for mental health services being provided in the jail, as opposed to a loose commitment from the warden that he'll type something up.
I could say that the WellPath services has been, it's being looked at. My office, along with the warden, are looking at the hours being provided by WellPath, and they're lower than what the contract calls for. So that is something that's being looked at now, and it's not a so-called audit, but it is being looked at for them to provide the services that they're contracting with us.
So I guess that is another question I have. Last month, it seemed that the major takeaway from the audit of the contract was that they weren't providing the services, and so we wanted a refund of our money as opposed to holding them accountable to provide the services that are necessary to people who are incarcerated.
My understanding was that Dr. Malik, who is our psychiatrist, he's part-time, but my understanding was that he does work his hours and in fact works over those hours. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But even fulfilling his contractual obligations, I don't feel is enough to treat the people, the amount of people that we have in prison with mental health issues. I don't know how my co-commissioners feel, but I'm not comfortable eliminating positions without a plan in action or a plan in writing to show what action is going to be taken.
Right, okay. So can we as the public have some type of timeline when that plan will be in order for mental health services to be provided to the people in Lackawanna Prison?
It's actually, according to the warden's remarks here today, is in the process of putting it and bringing people back in, dealing with outreach, and having them come back in. I was meeting earlier this morning with the president judge to try and free up more of our classrooms in the prison so that we can reestablish the programs that were put on hold during COVID and have outreach to Warden. I've been in contact with the chairman of the board of outreach and Jane Augustine, and he assures me that they are ready, willing, and able to start to come back into the program, so back into the prison. So we got to make the space for them, and so I'm dealing with the other judges on that as well.
And
I don't understand why why the behavioral health portion of the prison is being deconstructed. I think it was working well. It's new. Sometimes you have to make tweaks. So I'm not for eliminating those positions. I'm going to talk to my co-commissioners
Well, and that's,
about possibly putting out those positions for rehire.
That's,
I don't know.
more in the nature of your budget negotiations with,
Well, it is, but I
among
don't
each
know
other.
if the board gets involved in terms of, we have.
The board doesn't do budget.
No,
prison board
but the
doesn't do
word,
budget.
the board has taken some responsibility with regard to hiring. So he's asking for positions to be eliminated. I think that's incorrect, and they should be, so there's a lot of gray area, and I think that it's problematic. And meanwhile, we have inmates not being treated.
And so my question to you is program, I guess, is a loose term. Could you tell me which programs you're referring to?
Off the top of my head, I can't tick off a list of them. Perhaps the warden might be able to give you an idea because he's more familiar with some of the programs that were in there and were interrupted due to COVID. But I know in dealing with, as I say, the chairman of the board over at Outreach, they're very anxious to come back in. And so we're anxious to have them come back in. Okay?
The program that I was referring to, that 250 active participants, which were inmates at the prison of September, they provide individual counseling, including but not limited to identifying and correcting criminal thinking patterns, learning to challenge thinking errors and to reframe them, learning and implementing healthier coping skills, psychoeducation on the impact of trauma, identifying feelings and implementing emotional regulation and distress tolerance skills, gaining insight into substance use disorder and other underlying co-occurring disorders such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar. The program also assists with reentry and housing, connecting individual to resources to in order to assist with education and employment, competency evaluations, et cetera, so that when they leave the facility, they have resources so that they can continue what they need in terms of treatment. I hope that answered your question as regard to that.
It helps, yes. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Is the GED program up and running again?
It is.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Yes, the GED, we've been running it, I guess you could say remotely through the services of outreach. But I also wanted to address what Commissioner Domenick just rattled off. Sounds great. If we ever did that, I'd be thrilled. If they want to give me the money to have those staff members at the prison to do that, I'll take it. I also need 7 correctional officers, full-time.
We had them. We had the 5 positions in place. You're trying to eliminate them.
I'm looking to eliminate them because I was told after I asked for 7 correctional officers, what are you going to give up? I don't
Well,
want
I
to
don't think
eliminate
that's
them.
the answer, is to give up mental health treatment.
I agree with you.
That's an atrocity.
I agree with you, and I would love to have, as everybody on this board may be aware, I'm very supportive of drug and alcohol treatment, substance abuse treatment, well, same thing, mental health treatment. I'm all in favor of that.
Anyone
I'm all
can
in
be
favor of it.
supportive from the confines of their office, but get on the floor and talk to the inmates and actually get your pulse, your finger on the pulse of what's going on there.
Okay, come on.
What? Come on, what?
What's
the issue?
It's a broken record, okay? You've made your point, all right? You don't have to keep
He
going
got up
over
and
this
said it,
again.
so I'm gonna reply.
That's fine, and you did. So
Sorry if you don't like what I'm saying.
it has nothing to do with that.
Yes, it does.
Just-
Things are falling apart over there, and nobody wants to acknowledge it.
Anything else, Warden?
Just as long as we're talking budgetary things, please consider what I asked for initially without any pushback.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board?
Reverend Doug Postgate, retired Protestant clergy. I've been before this board a number of times. You see my face. Last year, about a year ago, nobody on the board that was present had said there was not a good reason to hire a certified chaplain, a chaplain who would deal with all of the different faiths that are represented in that facility. Dr. Yevik spoke with you last week, or last month rather, I was not here. He spoke about the rationale, reasons to have that person. I understand that this body likes to do things in a professional manner and pay people to do that. My understanding of a certified chaplain's salary is below any of the COs or other ranked higher persons in the prison. And I would like to ask that this board, and it's the last thing I'm going to say, next meeting, if I'm able to be here, I will be here. And I'll ask if there's a brief response from members of the board to say, what's my rationale to not have a certified chaplain, a responsible person in charge of spiritual health? Now, I know we've talked about the others. Every one of us sitting here is a person of spirit, as are those individuals who are incarcerated. And so I'm going to ask if next month when I'm here, if I could ask for a 1 minute, or not even a brief sentence as to why the rationale, aside from money, because I know that will always be the fallback, why we shouldn't have not just volunteer chaplains. Love volunteer, everybody loves free. I thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Bukowski. I've worked for Lackawanna County.
Can you pull the microphone down so we can hear you, please? Thank you.
My name is Andrew Bukowski. I've worked tax assessor's office for 42 years as the assistant. Been retired for the last 14. Also, I have a real estate license in Pennsylvania, and I ran a third job. I worked in a beer place. But because the salary wasn't that great after 42 years, like $29,000. So I was retired, and I was enjoying life. Retired for the last 14 years. Then all of a sudden, I was driving my car in Scranton, and a Scranton policeman pulled me over, and for no reason, really, he said, he's in front of me. We went a couple blocks, and he went straight on Wyoming Avenue, or Lackawanna Avenue. I was back of him. He turned off, okay? And I went down Wyoming, and he goes and says, I ran 3 red lights in a row, and he was never behind me. I have the police reports here. It's been going on for 6 years, and I never got my day in court. Okay, I went to represent myself because I went to get a lawyer. I had one lawyer, Attorney Comerford. He told me, he called me, you have a building from the prison where Judge Beres went and had to kidnap and put me in the basement for 90 days for no reason. Okay, and then 6 months later, I had another bogus one combined the DUI. So it was. So I had requested a hearing with the magistrate, for hearing, and had just about my day in court. It's all I was 15 minutes. I mean, never got it. Judge Beres went and had Attorney Breyer, which is his errand boy in the past. In other words, if I'm there to hear my hearing, Breyer couldn't be there. But he always had me, this last time, 90 days, thrown in jail. Okay, after 90 days, I ended up being a patient present a condition which there was a high probability of life-threatening deterioration in critical care services, right? Okay, and then final diagnosis. Now, the Judge Beres had the prison board ended up with a bill for $45,000. 68 years old was started. I'm 75 now. Okay, and at that point, there was acute renal failure, acute pancreatitis, acute donatellas, acute dehydration, chronic back pain, and it said it was life-threatening. And when I was in jail, I went in there at a healthy 203 pounds, 68 years old, and I still had my mind at that point. Now, after 45 days, okay, there was no medical whatsoever in jail when I was there. The first 45 days, I was comatose. There was no doctor. There was no doctor there. It was free, no heat. The little food I got, I lost a pound a day. I lost 45 pounds in 45 days. I was 160 pounds. I just want my day in court, but every time I go to get a day in court, Judge Beres, I get Breyer involved. This last time, I scheduled for a hearing and with the magistrates, and once Judge Beres found out about it, he got Breyer there. He goes, use forward my name to say he's my attorney. And I haven't talked to Jack Breyer. He's gone now, And Judge Egan was a close friend of mine, and they had a falling out. So there was hard feelings between Judge Egan and Breyer. And at this point in my bills, like I said, 6 pages of medications. They gave me last rites while I was in the hospital, and 6 pages. I have them here, and I was so I couldn't go down this time for my hearing because the judge put me down there 90 days for no reason. No reason whatsoever. My driver's license was in tip-top shape. I was never arrested for anything. I live by myself now and did by force. My mother died, took care of her. But now the condition, after, the county paying the Geisinger, $45,000 and for confusion. I was confused after 45 days by the food. And he put me back down there for another 45 days. And just thank God for a couple of COs there. I worked the county 42 years. They made sure one meal a day they brought up to me. They took turns. I never would have got to another 45 days because the first 45, that's 45 pounds. So Judge Brees figured, how am I going to get through 45 more? The last 45, and I was like a brain dead. I was laying there in a cell. I got different lawyers, everything myself. And then on top of that, after he raised it, I got in the mail from Judge Brace, court costs. Now, believe this, I never had a day in court, $10,000. $10,000. Where am I going to get $10,000?
So I don't know what, I appreciate your story. I'm not sure what you are seeking from the prison board.
Compensation for the damage they did to me, the jail. In other words, I was there for.
When were you
no
there?
Reason for I was kidnapped.
No, but when? What was the time frame?
The last 4 or 5 years, 5 years here. There's 6 pages here of medications I was on for many days to save my life.
Okay.
And now, after, they never picked up while I was there. I finally had, this last year later, I had a major heart attack. I had 2 or 3, I said, I believe I entitled something, my bills down there. I didn't make them bills. Judge Brees put me down there. He made the bills, $45,000.
Well, I appreciate that. If you're looking for compensation,
Yeah.
okay, this is not the way to go about it. You should consult with a lawyer.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a copy here.
And follow the lawyer's advice.
Oh, he stiffed me. He went there next day. He signed the contract with him, right? He said, "We're going to ask for the board goes 3 times the medical bills, okay?" And mine was $45,000. So he said, "I get start with like $132,000." I'd be tickled to death to get that $45,000. I'm in bad shape now. I mean, I could be here today and gone 2 minutes later, because I only got one blockage, one opening to my heart, and I pretty much handicapped. I don't drive. I give my car up, and I need more money to live on. I have a county pension and Social Security, but there's a lot of bills out there, and you're by yourself, taking care of a property for 35 years, and then now you're like a vegetable, I can't, you get up in the morning, it's tough to walk. I have acute renal failure I got while I was in jail, you know what I mean? But I was a super, 68 years old, like a Superman. After 45 in jail, I was a vegetable. It's not right. I just want my one day, in court, so I had to represent myself. Where am I going to get, Judge Reese puts in for no reason at all, $10,000. I worked at the assessment office for 42 years. My salary had been 42 years, $29,000 as the assistant in that office.
I appreciate what you're saying, but as I said, I mean, this is not the forum to seek.
Yeah, but how do I stop a judge from giving me my day in court? That's all I wanted. By one time a hearing, and that was it.
And I appreciate that, too.
But, wait, now 5 years for that.
We're not here, we can't give you legal advice is what you're looking for, but you can go to a lawyer and
yeah, but the
tell
board, the judges and the commissioners and office heads. I don't know. I was with all of them, and it's a pity because now I'm by myself now. Now I'm sickly, and my days are numbered. I get that major double bypass and serious operation. You know what I mean? And I'm in good shape. I gotta build myself back up again, or else looking decent. I was like a skeleton before, after 45 days. But you're on the board. I mean, you people can make a decision because the commissioners and the board, they work together. The salary board. That's why I try to get eyes together one place so I can talk to you. You know what I mean, it took me this long to get here.
I hear what you're saying, but I mean, it's not that simple, okay?
But what about the damage they did to me? In that place for 45 days,
If
and
you-
the bill was $45,000 for the taxpayers. That's ridiculous. They have to pay that for me when I didn't cause that. Judge Baris caused that, and in my health.
And I can appreciate that, but as I said to you, if you're seeking compensation for treatment that you've received, the proper way is to seek the services and the advice of an attorney and follow what the attorney
A
is.
whole year, the statute of limitations ran out, and he slipped me. He never called me back again. Comfort. He called me on the phone, yeah. I said, I'll sign a thing. I want them to file the lawsuit. Next day, I signed off, and I go to see him. He wouldn't answer the phone. A whole year, he stiffed me. What else could I do? I went to him. I went to other lawyers, too, and other names, and familiar with the case. It wasn't just one lawyer. It was a great case. I have the thing, all cases, everything right here. It was all done. Geisinger.
I don't know that I can tell you anything different.
DA's office, we didn't get through there. I tried to hire a DA there. He told me he got a good case, but it'd be conflict of interest because he's running for DA, okay? And so, it's hard to go around when I have no card, no nothing. And I don't have the money, because the first out of the court costs, I was dropped over with it. And then the problem is, Judge Brees gives me probation, okay? You get this now, 7 years. 7 years. I'm going to AA meetings, right? I went to DATS, T-PALs, Colors 90, AA meetings 90 and 90, nonstop. Right? What am I supposed to do? I'm entitled to my day in court. I didn't get it because of Judge Brees. I mean, there should be a remedy for that. My health has gone from a 10 to a 0. I've built up a little bit now.
I'm sorry. I'm not unsympathetic to what you're saying, but there's nothing that we can do for you.
You know? That's given. I mean, it would be understanding. I had to get this so long to get up here, get everything together, and I do everything right. I don't break the law or nothing. The judge can go and stop me every time for me going for a hearing. I'm entitled to. I better go for a hearing, and boom, there's 2 deputy sheriffs kidnapped me, put me in the basement of the jail. I have no paperwork or nothing because I'm representing myself. And I mean, the law is the law, and why can't I get some help? I mean, according to the law, the prison, board is there, and then the commissioner and so the office head. I knew all of them. 42 years I worked for the county. I was good friends with every judge, except one, because Judge Brees and Judge Egan had a falling out back a few years ago when they both were running for office. That was pretty bad. And it's because I had my real estate license with Judge Egan temporarily in Esgrove, while I was working in the assessor's office.
Again, I'm sorry, but there's really nothing that this board.
I mean, I was, simple. 5 minutes with the magistrates. That's all I wanted. I couldn't get that.
I appreciate that, okay? But there's nothing that this board as an entity can do for you to give you redress for your complaints.
Well, where am I supposed to go next?
I can't.
It's the prison board and the commissioners.
I can't sit here and give you legal advice.
No,
okay?
but
But that's what you're, that's what you're
For
asking.
no reason, they, for no reason, put me in 90 days in prison, they kidnapped me. And I went from like a healthy person, super person, to a zero, good grow, like a flower, dead flower growing. Well, he has, this in back there, is raised, and he uses Breyer as a front because he can't get involved. So he has Breyer go in front, we wait in the court so he can be the judge. And as soon as he gets that, I got a thing in the mail. He waits in the court, and I never signed a contract for him. I never seen Judge Berry once in 50 years. I haven't seen Breyer once in the last 25 years.
Well, Mr. Breyer's been dead for several
I know
years
that.
now.
Do you don't think I know that? Well, before he died, he was supposed to be representing me. It's funny, he didn't crawl back about a grave and represent the judge again. He won't be doing that anymore, you know?
I'm sorry, but our time is up here, so we,
I can't believe, I mean, according to the prison board, I'm just going with July. I'm just having my day in court, and he stopped me not going to court. Almost buried me 6 foot under. Yes, I can't show up. If I show up, Breyer can't be there. They make sure Breyer's there, and I'm locked up somewhere with shackles and with 2 deputy sheriffs around me. I never. I'm sorry, sir. Hey, I can't believe it. You know, it's not right. It's going on for 5 years. Somebody should do something.
adjourn the meeting because I don't have a quorum here, so.